The black car pulled up to the gates of Windsor Castle just as the morning mist began to clear. Security guards did a double-take as they recognized the familiar faces behind the tinted windows. Prince William sat in the passenger seat, his jaw tight with determination, while Catherine adjusted her coat nervously beside him. They had traveled through the night, taking back roads and avoiding main highways to reach this moment. Nobody at the palace knew they were coming. Not the Queen's private secretary, not the media liaison team, and certainly not the swarm of reporters who usually tracked their every movement. For the first time in months, William and Catherine had managed to slip away from their official duties without a single camera following them. The decision to return had been made suddenly. During a quiet dinner in their temporary residence, Catherine had been staring out the window when she turned to William with tears in her eyes. "We need to go home," she had whispered. "Something terrible is about to happen and we need to be there." William had seen that look before, the same intuition that had guided her through countless royal challenges. Within hours, they had packed essential belongings and arranged for a trusted friend to drive them back to Britain. The children remained safely with their nanny, unaware of their parents' midnight departure. William had turned off his official phone, knowing that palace staff would panic when they discovered the future king and queen consort had vanished without explanation. As they approached the castle gates, William's hands trembled slightly. He had not spoken to his father in weeks, not since their last heated argument about the direction of the monarchy. The disagreement had been so severe that William had requested a temporary break from royal duties, taking Catherine and the children abroad for what was supposed to be a month-long retreat. The security guard approached their vehicle cautiously, his radio crackling with urgent communications. Within minutes, word spread through the castle like wildfire. Staff members who had been going about their morning routine suddenly found themselves scrambling to prepare for an unannounced royal arrival. The head housekeeper nearly dropped her tea when informed that Prince William and Catherine were at the gates without any advance notice. Catherine squeezed William's hand as they drove through the familiar grounds. The ancient oak trees stood like silent sentinels, their branches heavy with autumn leaves that rustled in the crisp morning breeze. Everything looked exactly as they had left it, yet somehow different. The weight of their absence hung in the air, and Catherine could sense the tension that had built up during their time away. In the royal apartments, King Charles was finishing his breakfast when his private secretary burst through the doors with unprecedented urgency. The king's face went through a range of emotions: surprise, concern, relief, and then something that looked almost like fear. He set down his newspaper with shaking hands and asked to be left alone for a moment to process the news. The queen consort, Camilla, was in her private sitting room when she received word of the unexpected arrival. She had been worried sick about the family rift and had spent countless hours trying to convince Charles to reach out to his son. Now, with William and Catherine appearing without warning, she wondered what crisis had driven them to return so suddenly. Palace staff rushed to prepare the royal apartments that had been closed during William and Catherine's absence. Dust sheets were pulled away from furniture, fresh flowers were hastily arranged, and the kitchen sprang into action to prepare a proper welcome meal. The speed and efficiency of their preparation spoke to years of training for unexpected royal arrivals. As William and Catherine stepped out of their car, the weight of returning to royal life settled on their shoulders like a familiar but heavy cloak. Catherine pulled her coat tighter around herself, not just against the morning chill but against the memories that came flooding back. This place held so much history, so many moments of joy and sorrow, triumph and controversy. The castle doors opened before they could knock, revealing the familiar face of the head butler who had served the royal family for over 30 years. His eyes widened with genuine surprise and relief as he bowed formally, then broke into an uncharacteristic smile. "Your Royal Highnesses," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Welcome home." William nodded grimly as they entered the grand hallway. The portraits of his ancestors looked down at him from their gilded frames, and he felt the weight of centuries of royal duty pressing down on his shoulders. Whatever had driven them to return in such secrecy, he knew their lives were about to change dramatically once again. Catherine noticed the way staff members whispered urgently into their phones as they passed, and she realized that within hours, news of their unexpected return would reach the media. Their brief escape from public scrutiny was already coming to an end. but she sensed that something much more significant was about to unfold. The silence in the castle felt different from the peaceful quiet they had enjoyed during their retreat. This was a loaded silence, pregnant with unspoken tensions and unresolved conflicts. As they walked deeper into the royal residence, both William and Catherine could feel the weight of expectation and the sense that their sudden return would set in motion events that none of them could fully control. The news of William and Catherine's unexpected arrival spread through London faster than anyone could have imagined. By noon, every major news outlet was scrambling to understand why the Prince and Princess of Wales had returned without any official announcement. Palace phones rang constantly as journalists demanded explanations that no one seemed able to provide. Catherine sat in her private study, staring at her phone as dozens of missed calls accumulated. The media circus had already begun, and she could see news vans gathering outside the castle gates through her window. She had hoped for a few quiet hours to settle in before facing the inevitable storm of public attention, but privacy was a luxury that royal life rarely afforded. King Charles paced nervously in his office, unsure whether to approach his son immediately or give the couple time to settle in. The argument that had driven William away still felt raw and unresolved. It had started over concerns about modernizing the monarchy and had escalated into a heated discussion about family loyalty, duty, and the future of the crown. Words had been said that could not easily be taken back. William found himself drawn to the castle's ancient library, a place where he had often sought solace during difficult times. The smell of old leather and parchment brought back childhood memories of hiding among the towering bookshelves while his parents dealt with various crises. Now, as an adult facing his own challenges, he realized how much he had missed the comfort of familiar surroundings. The palace staff worked overtime to manage the growing media frenzy outside. Security was doubled, and all non-essential personnel were asked to avoid the main areas where William and Catherine might be spotted. The head of communications found herself in the impossible position of having to field questions about a situation she knew nothing about, since the royal couple had bypassed all official channels. Catherine's phone finally rang with a call she had been expecting. Her mother, Carol Middleton, had seen the news reports and was calling to check on her daughter's well-being. The conversation was brief but emotional, with Catherine explaining that she could not discuss the reasons for their return, but that everyone was safe. The concern in her mother's voice reminded Catherine of how their sudden departure had affected not just the royal family, but everyone who cared about them. Meanwhile, government officials were quietly expressing concern about the potential constitutional implications of William's unannounced return. As second in line to the throne, his movements and decisions carried weight that extended far beyond family matters. The Prime Minister's office had already reached out to palace officials seeking clarification about whether this return indicated any changes in royal duties or responsibilities. In the royal kitchens, the staff prepared a traditional afternoon tea, hoping that familiar routines might help ease the tension that seemed to permeate the entire castle. The head chef, who had known William since he was a young boy, took special care with the selection of cakes and sandwiches, remembering the prince's preferences from years of royal service. Catherine decided to take a walk through the castle gardens, needing fresh air and space to think. The perfectly manicured lawns and ancient rose beds provided a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding beyond the castle walls. As she walked, she reflected on the events that had led to their dramatic departure weeks earlier and wondered whether their return would heal the family wounds or deepen them further. The Queen Consort, Camilla, finally decided to break the awkward silence that had settled over the royal household. She knocked gently on Catherine's study door and entered with a warm smile and a pot of fresh tea. The two women had developed a close relationship over the years, and Camilla's presence provided the first genuine moment of comfort since their arrival. Their conversation was careful but heartfelt, with Camilla expressing relief at their safe return while respecting their privacy about the reasons behind it. She shared her own concerns about the family tensions and admitted that the past few weeks had been difficult for everyone. Catherine found herself opening up about the emotional toll of their situation and the difficult decision to return. Outside the castle walls, royal correspondents were working frantically to piece together a timeline of events. Some had noticed William and Catherine's absence from recent official events, but Their retreat had been presented as a planned break from duties. Now, with their dramatic unannounced return, questions were being raised about what had really been happening during their time away. Social media exploded with theories and speculation about the royal return. Hashtags began trending worldwide as royal watchers shared their own interpretations of events. Some suggested a family reconciliation, others worried about potential health issues, and a few conspiracy theorists proposed more dramatic explanations. The palace's silence only fueled more speculation. William finally decided he could not avoid his father indefinitely. He made his way to the king's private office, where he found Charles sitting behind his desk looking older and more tired than William remembered. The moment of recognition between father and son was charged with emotion. Years of love and frustration meeting in a single glance. Their conversation began tentatively, with both men choosing their words carefully. Charles expressed relief at William's safe return while acknowledging that their previous argument had left deep wounds. William, for his part, admitted that their time away had given him perspective on the importance of family unity, even in the face of disagreements about the future. As evening approached, the reality of their situation became clear to both William and Catherine. Their unannounced return had created a media storm that would require careful management. More importantly, it had forced them back into the complex web of royal relationships and responsibilities that they had temporarily escaped. The coming days would test whether their family could find a way forward together, or whether their differences would prove insurmountable. The castle settled into an uneasy quiet as night fell, but everyone within its walls knew that the real challenges were just beginning. Tomorrow would bring new pressures, difficult conversations, and decisions that would shape the future of the royal family for years to come. The morning brought unexpected news that changed everything. Catherine woke to find William standing by their bedroom window, his phone pressed to his ear and his face pale with shock. The call was from their children's school, reporting that photographers had been spotted near the grounds despite the family's location being kept secret. Someone had leaked information about where the children were staying during their parents' absence. Catherine felt her heart race as the implications became clear. Their sudden return to Britain was no longer just about family reconciliation or royal duties. It had become a matter of protecting their children's safety and privacy. The couple had worked hard to give their children as normal a childhood as possible. But now their careful arrangements were unraveling. Within an hour, a helicopter had been dispatched to collect the children from their temporary residence. William coordinated the logistics while Catherine packed their belongings, both parents working with the efficiency that came from years of dealing with security concerns. The irony was not lost on them that their attempt to escape public scrutiny had ultimately put their family in greater danger. King Charles arrived at their apartments unannounced, his usually composed demeanor showing cracks of genuine worry. The situation with the children had transformed what might have been a private family matter into a potential security crisis. Palace protection officers were already investigating how the children's location had been compromised, while media relations staff prepared damage control strategies. The conversation between Charles and William took on new urgency. Their previous disagreements seemed less important when faced with the immediate threat to the children's well-being. Charles revealed that he had been receiving concerning intelligence reports about increased interest from paparazzi and tabloid journalists in the family's activities during their absence. Catherine found herself caught between relief and anxiety as she waited for news of the children's safe arrival. She had always known that royal life came with risks, but seeing those risks materialize so quickly after their return felt like a harsh reminder of the price of their public roles. She called her own parents to warn them that they might also face increased media attention. The head of royal protection briefed the family on the security measures being implemented. Additional officers were being assigned to the children, and all family movements would need to be carefully coordinated for the foreseeable future. The freedom they had briefly enjoyed during their retreat was officially over, replaced by the familiar constraints of high-level security protocols. As news of the children's situation began to leak to the press, public opinion started to shift dramatically. What had initially been curiosity about the royal couple's unexpected return now became concern for the family's privacy and safety. Royal supporters began criticizing media outlets for their aggressive pursuit of the story, while others defended the public's Right to know about significant royal family developments. The Prime Minister's office issued a rare statement expressing concern about the security implications of the media attention surrounding the royal family. This added a political dimension to what had started as a personal family matter, raising questions about the relationship between press freedom and national security when it came to the monarchy. William and Catherine received word that their children were safe and would arrive within the hour. The relief was palpable, but both parents knew that this crisis had fundamentally changed their situation. They could no longer maintain the fiction that their retreat had been a simple family vacation. Too much had happened, and too many people were asking too many questions. The Queen Consort Camilla worked behind the scenes to coordinate with various government departments and security agencies. Her experience with media management proved invaluable, as she helped develop strategies to protect the family while maintaining necessary transparency with the public. She understood better than most how quickly royal family situations could spiral out of control. Catherine's private secretary arrived with a stack of urgent messages from various organizations and charities with which the princess was associated. Many were expressing concern about her well-being and offering support, while others were requesting clarification about upcoming engagements and commitments. The reality of returning to public life was becoming overwhelming. The children's helicopter appeared on the horizon just as the afternoon news programs began reporting on the security concerns. William and Catherine watched from their window as their youngest waved excitedly from the aircraft, oblivious to the drama that had necessitated their dramatic rescue. The contrast between childhood innocence and adult responsibilities had never felt more stark. As the family reunited in the castle's private quarters, the emotional toll of the past 24 hours became apparent. The children, initially excited by their helicopter ride, began to sense the tension in their parents' behavior. Catherine found herself struggling to maintain a calm facade while processing the rapid changes in their circumstances. King Charles called an emergency meeting with senior palace officials to address the broader implications of the day's events. The conversation focused on reviewing security protocols, media management strategies, and the need for a coordinated response to growing public and political pressure for transparency about the family's recent activities. William realized that their attempt to handle their family issues privately had failed spectacularly. The very act of trying to escape public scrutiny had created a much larger public relations crisis than if they had simply dealt with their problems within the existing royal framework. The lesson was painful but clear. There was no such thing as true privacy for members of the royal family. As evening approached, the family gathered for dinner in their private dining room, surrounded by the familiar luxury of royal life but acutely aware of how precarious their position had become. The children chatted about their unexpected adventure, while their parents exchanged meaningful glances that spoke of shared worry and determination. Catherine looked around the table at her family and felt a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The events of the day had reminded her that their royal roles came with both incredible privilege and enormous responsibility, not just to the nation, but to each other. The third day brought revelations that no one had anticipated. Catherine was reading morning newspapers in the breakfast room when she came across a headline that made her blood run cold. A tabloid had published photographs taken during their supposed private retreat, showing William in heated conversation with someone the paper identified as a mystery advisor. The images suggested their time away had been far from the peaceful family break they had claimed. William's reaction was immediate and fierce. He had not told Catherine about the meetings with constitutional lawyers and crisis management experts that had taken place during their retreat. What she had believed was family time had actually been William preparing for a much larger confrontation with the establishment than she had realized. The betrayal she felt was evident in her eyes, and William knew he had serious explaining to do. The photographs raised uncomfortable questions about who had been secretly documenting their activities and why. Palace security experts were called in to analyze the images, trying to determine how such surveillance could have occurred without their knowledge. The revelation that their private moments had been captured suggested a level of organized intrusion that went far beyond typical paparazzi behavior. King Charles studied the newspaper photographs with growing alarm. The mystery advisor was someone he recognized. a prominent constitutional expert known for challenging traditional royal protocols. The implication was clear. William had been preparing for some kind of institutional confrontation during his absence. The king felt a mixture of disappointment and fear about what his son might be planning. Catherine confronted William in their private sitting room, demanding to know what else he had hidden from her during their retreat. The conversation was painful and emotional, with William finally admitting that he had been consulting experts about potentially restructuring his role within the monarchy. He had not wanted to burden Catherine with these discussions until he had clearer answers. The weight of William's revelations struck Catherine like a physical blow. She realized that while she had been focusing on family healing and reconciliation, her husband had been secretly planning what amounted to a revolution within the royal system. The trust between them, already strained by recent events, felt as if it might shatter completely. Palace officials worked frantically to manage the growing crisis. The photographs had been accompanied by allegations that William was preparing to challenge his father's authority and potentially bypass traditional succession protocols. While these claims were largely speculative, they carried enough truth to create genuine constitutional concerns. The Prime Minister's office requested an urgent meeting with senior royal representatives. The government needed assurance that the stability of the monarchy was not in question, as any uncertainty could have significant political and economic implications. The pound had already dropped slightly on international markets as investors reacted to speculation about royal family instability. Catherine found herself questioning everything. She thought she knew about their situation. If William had been planning significant changes to his royal role, what did that mean for her own position and for their children's future? The life she had built and the causes she had championed could all be affected by decisions he had been making. Without her input, the Queen Consort Camilla attempted to mediate between the increasingly tense family members. She arranged a private lunch with Catherine, hoping to provide emotional support while also gathering information about the true state of William and Catherine's relationship. The conversation revealed the depth of Catherine's feelings of betrayal and uncertainty about her future. William's meetings with constitutional experts had focused on the possibility of modernizing the monarchy from within, potentially creating a more streamlined and relevant institution for the 21st century. However, his approach had been secretive and unilateral, failing to include either his wife or his father in the planning process. The isolation of his decision-making was now creating the very crisis he had hoped to avoid. The children sensed the growing tension between their parents and began acting out in small ways that reflected their emotional stress. Their youngest started having nightmares while the older children became unusually quiet and withdrawn. The family's attempt to protect them from adult concerns was failing as the children absorbed the anxiety around them. Catherine's mother called to express concern about the newspaper reports and to offer support for her daughter. The conversation was difficult, as Catherine found herself unable to explain the full situation while also needing emotional comfort from someone she trusted. The isolation of royal life had never felt more complete. King Charles made the difficult decision to confront William directly about his secret consultations. Their meeting was formal and tense, with Charles expressing disappointment about William's lack of transparency, while also acknowledging that some of his ideas for modernization had merit. The conversation ended without resolution, leaving both men frustrated and uncertain. Palace lawyers worked to assess the legal implications of William's discussions with constitutional experts. While nothing he had done was illegal or technically inappropriate, the secrecy surrounding his actions raised questions about his fitness for future kingship. The monarchy relied heavily on trust and tradition, both of which seemed to be under threat. The media frenzy intensified as more details emerged about the constitutional experts William had consulted. Each revelation added fuel to speculation about a potential royal rebellion, while palace officials struggled to control the narrative without revealing information that could make the situation worse. Catherine realized that she faced a fundamental choice about her future. She could either support William's vision for change, despite feeling excluded from its development, or she could distance herself from his plans and risk damaging their marriage beyond repair. The decision would affect not only her personal happiness, but also the stability of the entire royal family. As evening approached, William and Catherine found themselves sitting in silence in their private quarters, both processing the events of a day that had changed everything between them. The photographs in the morning paper had exposed secrets that went far beyond hidden meetings. They had revealed a breakdown in trust and communication that threatened the foundation of their partnership. The castle felt different around them, as if the ancient walls themselves were responding to the uncertainty about the future. Staff members moved quietly through the corridors, aware that they were witnessing a potential turning point in royal history, but uncertain about what changes might be coming, or how those changes would affect their own lives and loyalties. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Catherine's lady-in-waiting discovered a letter that had been delivered to the castle, but somehow misdirected in the chaos of the past few days. The envelope bore the seal of a major television network, and inside was an offer that would change everything. They wanted William and Catherine to participate in a landmark documentary about the future of the monarchy, giving them control over their own narrative for the first time in years. Catherine brought the letter to William as he sat in his study, surrounded by constitutional documents and legal opinions. The irony was striking. While he had been secretly planning institutional changes, the solution to their crisis might lie in the very media attention they had been trying to avoid. The documentary proposal offered them a chance to explain their actions and present their vision for the future directly to the public. The idea terrified and excited them in equal measure. No senior royals had ever undertaken such a comprehensive media project while actively serving. The risks were enormous. If the documentary backfired, it could destroy their reputations and potentially damage the monarchy itself. But the alternative was allowing others to continue controlling their story while their family fell apart under the pressure. King Charles's reaction to the documentary proposal was complex. Part of him was horrified by the idea of his son and daughter-in-law exposing royal family dynamics to public scrutiny. However, another part recognized that the current crisis required unprecedented solutions. The monarchy had survived previous challenges by adapting to changing times, and perhaps this was simply the next evolution. Catherine insisted on specific conditions for the documentary. She wanted assurance that their children would be protected from excessive exposure, that they would have editorial control over content relating to their family life, and that the focus would be on their vision for modernizing royal service rather than personal drama. These negotiations took days and involved teams of lawyers and media experts. The Queen Consort Camilla surprised everyone by strongly supporting the documentary idea. Her own experience with negative media coverage had taught her the importance of controlling one's own narrative. She argued that transparency might actually strengthen the monarchy by showing the human side of royal service and the genuine dedication of the next generation. William's constitutional experts were divided about the documentary proposal. Some saw it as a brilliant strategy for implementing change while maintaining public support. Others worried that it would set dangerous precedents for future royals and could undermine the mystique that had traditionally protected the monarchy from excessive scrutiny. This production team for the documentary was carefully selected, based on their previous work with sensitive subjects and their reputation for fair, thoughtful storytelling. Catherine met with the director personally, discussing her concerns about privacy and her hopes for how the project might help the public understand the challenges facing modern royalty. Preparation for the documentary became a way for William and Catherine to rebuild their relationship, while also clarifying their shared goals. As they worked together to develop talking points and identify key themes, they rediscovered the partnership that had originally brought them together. Their conversations were sometimes difficult but ultimately healing. The palace staff watched the documentary preparations with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Many had served the royal family for decades and had never seen anything like this level of media access. Some worried about how their own roles might be portrayed, while others saw it as an opportunity to show the dedication and professionalism of royal household staff. King Charles decided to participate in limited portions of the documentary, seeing it as an opportunity to demonstrate family unity, while also addressing some of the constitutional questions that had been raised by William's secret consultations. His involvement helped legitimize the project and reduced some of the institutional resistance. The children were carefully prepared for their limited participation in the documentary. Child psychologists were consulted to ensure that their involvement would be positive and age-appropriate. Catherine was particularly protective of their privacy, while also recognizing that showing them as normal, happy children could help humanize the royal family. Media reactions to news of the documentary were intense and polarized. Royal correspondents praised the transparency, while traditionalists criticized the breach of royal protocol. International media began planning extensive coverage, recognizing that this could be a watershed moment for the British monarchy and potentially influence other royal families worldwide. Behind the scenes, government officials worked to ensure that the documentary would not create diplomatic or constitutional complications. Certain topics were deemed off-limits, and legal experts reviewed scripts to prevent any inadvertent breaches of protocol or law. The project required unprecedented coordination between various institutions. Catherine's parents were consulted about their own potential involvement in the documentary. Their perspective as commoners who had joined the royal family offered a unique viewpoint on the challenges of modern monarchy. Their participation helped ground the project in relatable family dynamics, rather than abstract constitutional theory. The filming process itself became therapeutic for William and Catherine. Being able to articulate their vision for the future, explain their recent decisions, and demonstrate their commitment to service helped them regain confidence in their roles. The act of speaking honestly about their challenges was liberating after months of careful public silence. As editing began, the full scope of what they had accomplished became clear. The documentary would not just explain their recent crisis, but would present a comprehensive vision for how the monarchy could evolve to remain relevant and effective in the modern world. It was both personal confession and institutional manifesto. The scheduled broadcast date was set for a month away, giving the palace time to prepare for the public reaction, while also allowing the royal family to process their own feelings about the revelations that would soon be made public. Everyone involved knew that the documentary would mark a permanent change in how the monarchy operated and communicated with the people. Catherine looked at the rough cuts of the documentary with a mixture of pride and nervousness. They had taken an enormous risk, but she believed it was the right choice for their family and for the institution they were destined to lead. The woman who had once been afraid to speak publicly was now preparing to share her deepest thoughts about royal service with millions of viewers around the world. The night before the documentary aired, Windsor Castle felt like the calm before a storm. Catherine walked through the quiet corridors, unable to sleep, thinking about how dramatically their lives were about to change once again. Tomorrow, millions of people would hear William admit that he had been planning to challenge traditional royal protocols. They would see Catherine express her own doubts about the monarchy's relevance to modern society. There would be no taking back these revelations. William found Catherine in the castle's chapel, sitting quietly in a pew where they had often sought solace during difficult times. Without speaking, he sat beside her and they held hands in the candlelit silence. Both were thinking about the journey that had brought them to this moment. From their secret return to Britain, to the crisis with their children's safety, from the painful revelations about William's hidden agenda, to their decision to tell their own story. King Charles spent the evening in his private study, reviewing an advance copy of the documentary for the final time. Despite his initial reservations, he found himself proud of his son and daughter-in-law's courage and honesty. The film showed them as thoughtful, dedicated people wrestling with genuine dilemmas about how to serve their country effectively. Their willingness to be vulnerable on camera demonstrated a kind of strength he had not expected. The children had been sent to stay with Catherine's parents for the broadcast, protecting them from the immediate media reaction while keeping them close enough for family support. Catherine's mother had promised to monitor news coverage and shield the children from any negative commentary. The decision to remove them from the immediate situation was difficult, but necessary. Palace communications teams worked through the night, preparing response strategies for various scenarios. They had talking points ready for potential criticism about royal protocol breaches, constitutional concerns about William's modernization plans, and questions about the family's recent behavior. The unprecedented nature of the documentary meant they were operating without established precedents. The Queen Consort Camilla hosted a small dinner for close family friends and advisors, creating a supportive atmosphere for the difficult evening ahead. She understood better than most how media scrutiny could affect family dynamics, and she wanted to ensure that William and Catherine felt surrounded by people who cared about them regardless of public reaction. Catherine's stylist had carefully chosen her outfit for the documentary interviews, selecting pieces that conveyed both accessibility and authority. Every detail had been considered, from jewelry that connected her to royal history to colors that would photograph well on television. The visual elements of their presentation were as important as their words in shaping public perception. International media outlets prepared extensive coverage plans for the documentary's revelations. Royal correspondents from around the world had traveled to London, recognizing that this could be a defining moment, not just for the British monarchy, but for the institution of royalty generally. The global interest added pressure, but also amplified the potential impact of their message. The Prime Minister's office issued a brief statement expressing support for the royal family while emphasizing the government's commitment to constitutional stability. Behind the scenes, political advisors were prepared for various scenarios, including potential questions about the government's role in royal family decisions and the constitutional implications of William's proposed changes. As the documentary's broadcast time approached, social media began buzzing with anticipation and speculation. Hashtags related to the royal family started trending worldwide as people shared their predictions and opinions about what might be revealed. The global nature of the conversation demonstrated how much interest there was in the monarchy's future. William and Catherine gathered with King Charles and Camilla in a private sitting room to watch the documentary together as a family. The decision to view it collectively was symbolic of their commitment to facing whatever reactions emerged as a unified group. The tension in the room was palpable as the opening credits began to roll. The documentary opened with stunning shots of Windsor Castle and Buckingham Palace, establishing the historical weight of the institution before introducing William and Catherine as modern inheritors of ancient traditions. The cinematography was beautiful but also subtly emphasized the contrast between old and new that was central to their story. Catherine's first interview segment showed her discussing the challenges of balancing public duty with private family life. Her honesty about struggling with the constant scrutiny was refreshing and relatable to viewers who had never considered the personal cost of royal service. She spoke about wanting her children to understand both their privileges and their responsibilities. William's revelation about consulting constitutional experts was presented in the context of his deep respect for the monarchy and his desire to ensure its continued relevance. Rather than appearing rebellious or disloyal, he came across as a thoughtful heir, wrestling with the challenge of leading an ancient institution in a rapidly changing world. The section about their unexpected return to Britain was handled delicately, focusing on their commitment to family unity and their recognition that personal disputes should not overshadow their public responsibilities. They acknowledged making mistakes in how they handled their disagreements, but emphasized their dedication to learning and growing from those experiences. Perhaps most powerful was a segment where William and Catherine spoke directly about their vision for the monarchy's future. They outlined specific ideas for making royal institutions more transparent, more accountable, and more directly beneficial to ordinary citizens. Their proposals were concrete and well-researched, showing that their modernization efforts were serious and thoughtful. The documentary's portrayal of King Charles was sympathetic and respectful, showing him as a father who loved his son, while also carrying the weight of institutional responsibility. The film made clear that the family's disagreements were about methods and timing, rather than fundamental values, helping to counter speculation about irreconcilable differences. As the documentary concluded, William and Catherine sat holding hands on camera, looking directly at viewers as they spoke about their hopes for the future. They acknowledged that change was difficult and that they would undoubtedly make more mistakes, but they asked for public support as they worked to create a monarchy that could serve Britain effectively for generations to come. The final image was of the family walking together across the grounds of Windsor Castle, with their children running ahead while William and Catherine followed, representing both continuity and change. The symbolism was powerful and hopeful, suggesting that the monarchy's future was in capable hands despite recent challenges. The morning after the documentary aired brought a flood of responses that exceeded everyone's expectations. Catherine woke to find her phone buzzing with messages from friends, family members, and colleagues from around the world. The overwhelming majority were positive, expressing admiration for her and William's courage in speaking so honestly about their challenges and their vision for the future. Public opinion polls conducted overnight showed surprisingly strong support for the royal couple's transparency and their modernization proposals. 73% of respondents said they felt more positive about the monarchy after watching the documentary, while 68% supported William's ideas for constitutional updates. The numbers provided validation for their risky decision to go public with their story. King Charles found himself in an unexpectedly positive position as media coverage praised his supportive role in the documentary. Rather than being portrayed as an obstacle to change, he was seen as a wise father figure who had guided his son through a difficult period while maintaining institutional stability. The family unity displayed in the film had strengthened rather than weakened his own reputation. International reactions were equally encouraging. European royal families issued statements expressing support for William and Catherine's approach, with several indicating interest in implementing similar modernization efforts in their own countries. The documentary had started conversations about monarchy's role in the 21st century that extended far beyond Britain's borders. The children returned from their grandparents' house to find their parents more relaxed and confident than they had been in months. The successful broadcast had lifted a tremendous weight from William and Catherine's shoulders, allowing them to focus on family life without the constant stress of hidden secrets and unresolved conflicts. Parliament responded to the documentary by announcing plans for a series of hearings on constitutional modernization, inviting William to participate as a witness rather than viewing his proposals as threatening to established order. The political establishment's willingness to engage constructively with his ideas represented a significant victory for the royal couple's approach. Palace staff noticed an immediate improvement in the working atmosphere at all royal residences. The tension and uncertainty that had characterized recent weeks was replaced by a sense of purpose and direction. Staff members felt proud to be part of an institution that was willing to evolve and adapt, rather than simply maintaining outdated traditions. Catherine's charitable organizations reported a surge in donations and volunteer applications following the documentary. Her honest discussion of the challenges facing modern Britain had inspired people to get more involved in addressing social problems. The increase in civic engagement was exactly the kind of outcome she had hoped their transparency might achieve. William's constitutional experts were invited to brief government officials on their modernization proposals, transforming what had once been secret consultations into official policy discussions. The transparency achieved through the documentary had legitimized conversations that might otherwise have remained controversial or suspicious. The media's response was more nuanced than expected, with even traditionally critical outlets acknowledging the courage required for such openness. Royal correspondents noted that William and Catherine had fundamentally changed the relationship between the monarchy and the press by taking control of their own narrative rather than relying on palace statements and carefully managed appearances. 3 months after the documentary aired, concrete changes began to be implemented. The royal family's financial arrangements became more transparent, with detailed reports published about how public funds were used. Several ceremonial positions were modernized to reflect contemporary values, while new initiatives were launched to connect royal work more directly with citizen concerns. Catherine found herself in greater demand as a speaker and advocate, with organizations around the world seeking her insights on leadership, family life, and social change. Her transformation from a reluctant public figure to a confident voice for modernization had been one of the documentary's most compelling narratives. The children adapted well to the increased transparency around their family life. Rather than feeling exposed, they seemed to benefit from the reduced tension between their parents and the greater sense of purpose that had emerged from the crisis. Their teachers reported improved behavior and academic performance as family stress diminished. William's relationship with his father had been strengthened rather than damaged by their public acknowledgement of disagreements. King Charles appreciated his son's respectful approach to institutional change and began involving him more directly in planning for the future transition of power. Their collaboration became a model for other constitutional monarchies facing similar challenges. A year later, Catherine reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point as she prepared for a major speech on social innovation. The woman who had once returned to Britain in secret, afraid of public scrutiny and uncertain about her role, was now confidently leading conversations about national priorities and institutional reform. The documentary's impact extended beyond the royal family to influence broader discussions about leadership, transparency, and institutional change in democratic societies. Universities began using it as a case study in crisis management and organizational transformation, while business leaders cited William and Catherine's approach as an example of how to modernize traditional institutions. William often thought about their midnight drive back to Windsor Castle, remembering how desperate and isolated they had felt during that difficult time. The crisis that had seemed likely to destroy their family had ultimately brought them closer together and created opportunities for positive change that none of them could have imagined. The success of their approach had attracted international attention, with other countries inviting William and Catherine to share their experiences with constitutional modernization. They had become inadvertent experts on balancing tradition with innovation, helping other institutions navigate similar challenges. Most importantly, the trust between William and Catherine had been not just restored but strengthened through their shared experience of vulnerability and growth. They had learned to communicate more openly about their concerns and ambitions, creating a partnership that was better equipped to handle the challenges of their unique roles. As they stood together at a public event, watching their children play with other young people, while photographers captured images that would be shared around the world, Catherine realized that they had achieved something remarkable. They had found a way to be both royal and authentic, both traditional and modern, both public figures and private individuals. The balance was delicate and required constant attention, but it was sustainable, in a way that their previous approach had not been. The story that had begun with a secret return to Britain had evolved into a public commitment to transparent leadership and institutional renewal. William and Catherine had discovered that their greatest strength lay not in hiding their struggles, but in sharing them, not in maintaining perfect facades, but in demonstrating genuine growth. Their willingness to be vulnerable had ultimately made them stronger leaders and better partners, creating a foundation for the decades of service that lay ahead.